morning, everyone. I know that you're all. Hello, Leah. Hello, Yue Sai. Our guest for today. I just invited Yue Sai.
Hi.
Sai, hello. So good to see you in this space.
You're
Thank
halfway
you
around
so
the
much.
world.
I know. Thank you so much for accommodating this time. I know that it's 18 hours difference. It's
It's
incredible. This
okay.
world,
It's 4 o'clock in Hawaii.
4 o'clock exactly, and it's Sunday, 10 a.m. in Singapore, and I want to wish everyone today who celebrates Easter, happy Easter, happy Sunday Easter, and thank you for joining us. It's an incredible privilege to have you, Yosai, with me on Conversations with Olga. So the way we're going to do it, I will say a few words as an introduction, and then I will say a tiny bit about you because there is so much that you can tell about yourself at the conversation. So, and there is so much that I had to streamline actually, that it's just, I think we need to have like 10 sessions for us even to cover half about your journey. So I will try to put it all in a little bit of a frame, and I will try to follow this frame. I put myself notes because it's just a lot. So bear with me, and I hope that we can cover at least a little bit of your vast, incredible life journey and inspirations that you have for all of us. So anyway, thank you everyone for joining to Conversations with Olga. It is an IGTV YouTube series I started during the circuit breaker. It's already more than 2.5 years ago, with the goal to introduce friends and personalities I've met over my career and my journey to the multicultural Singaporean and global community through a platform that is accessible and interesting. These conversations run the gamut of from intellectual and cultural exchanges to more personal conversations about how people fulfill their dreams. My main mission and hope for this series is to inspire and cultivate a more diverse and inclusive community that can learn from one another. And today it's an honor and a privilege to have my guest for episode number 45, the Emmy-winning TV host, fashion icon, and philanthropist, Yue Sai. Yue Sai is a definition of a trailblazer, known as Oprah of China and the first living American to be featured on a government-issued China postage stamp. The woman who brought China to American screens through an amazing travel show called One World, the household name who started a makeup revolution in China, an honorary ambassador at Shanghai International Film Festival, and founder of Yue Sai One World Foundation. No one has as immense reputation as for bringing cultures as you do. When we were communicating with you on emails in the past couple of weeks, besides talking to one another, one of your slogans as you sign off your emails is, if we don't care for each other, who will care for you? And this is incredibly powerful. And I even have tears in my eyes when I say that. A lot of your work, and I'm excited for our listeners to learn a little bit or so much or so little about you just because of the time limit. So welcome to Conversations with Olga, dear Yue Sai.
Thank you, Olga. You didn't tell them how we met.
Yes, it's a must. We met through our incredible, beautiful couple, mutual friends. Maybe you can say a few words
No,
about that.
he's
Okay.
Singaporean. You say something.
Oh, sure. Well, we have a wonderful couple who are great friends of Yue Sai for many years. And for me, I met them a few years ago. It's John and Julia. And they spoke so much about you. Of course, I've heard about you. But they're the ones who connected us with a very kind gesture. And here it is. And the rest is a history, as they say. So we are connected emotionally and otherwise. So thank you so much, Yue Sai, once again. Uh, we'll, we will start with a little bit of introduction, or actually about your background, I should say. You were born in China, but grew up in Hong Kong. I'm sure it was very different from what it is today, especially because of the political climate. What was growing up in Hong Kong like for you at those days?
Well, Hong Kong was a colony when I was living there. Uh, of course, my parents were literally immigrants. They left China to go to Hong Kong because my parents were educated and also landowners, so they were a bit nervous in those days, and they heard terrible stories about what's happening in the mainland. So there were two. Actually, I was imagining there were two places they could go to. They could have gone to not Singapore. They could have gone to Taiwan, or they could have gone to Hong Kong, and they chose to go to Hong Kong. They thought that maybe under the British it would be better than under the Kuomintang people, right? So with the family, all this, my father's brothers went to China from China to Hong Kong. Now could not possibly be easy for them because they were immigrants. They just had to. They could only carry as much as they could carry. That means going to Hong Kong, they had to start their whole life all over again. So it was really not easy. And I was only about 3 years old, 4 years old. So it was not easy for them to bring a little child along with them as well. So it was definitely hard. Now you would say, what was it like growing up in Hong Kong? When you are growing up poor, you don't know the difference.
Yes.
You wouldn't know because you don't know what is not good. So
True.
my parents were wonderful parents. We never found ourselves in need of anything. If I said I wanted to learn ballet, they would get me the best ballet teacher they could find. If I wanted to learn piano, they got me the best Russian teacher to teach me. So, and I went to very good schools. So I never felt that we were poor in that
Yes.
sense, yeah, because of the fact that my parents were so generous with us. So, but growing up in Hong Kong in a colonial situation, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I tell you, it's not a very comfortable
Yes. From
situation.
the
There
books,
were no,
yes.
for example, Chinese was never valued. It was more important that we could speak English,
Yeah.
because for my parents, speaking English was equivalent to maybe finding a good job one day when we grew up. So it was extremely interesting to think back that my parents didn't pay that much attention for us learning Chinese history, Chinese culture, all of those things, even though we were surrounded by Chinese culture too, right? My father he played the erhu, the musical instrument, and we spoke Chinese at home. So basically, we grew up in a Chinese home, but the environment was very colonial.
Yes.
The best jobs in a colony, of course, went to all the British, right? And we were in a way sort of second class
Yes.
citizen. So people tend to forget that, but those were not very good days, except that was probably better than if we had stayed on the mainland.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I can totally relate to your story because I've immigrated with my mother from former Soviet Union
Yeah.
and also intelligentsia family, and I've been through what you're saying very much as well when we arrived to New York, the United States from Soviet Union. So, but we learn, and I know that your mother was a businesswoman and your father was an educator, and obviously you were growing up with so much input from both of them. What opportunities came to you growing up that you think have led to where you are today?
Well, let's just talk about my mom and dad. Their
Yes.
influence on me were really pretty major. My mother was always independent, but she was a very smart woman. Let me say how smart I know that sometimes the family decisions were made by her, but she never, never, never let us feel that she was the one making the decisions. Always my father was making the decisions. So even though she is a very independent woman, she was always giving my father enough credit for being the head of the household, at least in our household. My father was really basically an educator and an artist. So I learned a great deal from him about how to be perfect. But like he would paint a painting and he would do it like, let's say, half an hour later. There's one stroke he didn't like, he gets rid of the entire painting. So it was this search for. As I said, my father was a singer. My father was a musician. He was an artist. So I learned to be artistic through him. But my mother was really smart. My mother would, with a little bit of money we had when we first moved to China, from China to Hong Kong, she managed to get enough money for us, for me to go to school in America.
Glitch.
No, yeah. So it's not so easy, was it? So, and all my three other sisters, we have four daughters in the family. All four of us went to school in America, which is a very big deal in those days. I don't know when today is not such a big deal anymore, but in those days, going to be able to go to school in America for college was a very, very
Of course,
prestigious thing.
of
Yeah, in
course,
those days,
of course.
sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing about your parents. Obviously, I think you getting into the world of television hosting and into entrepreneurship um, you were inspired by both of your parents. And I think if you can share with us, how did it all start? How did you get into this world?
You mean that
Into the
you mean
world of we can touch on this subject a little bit later because we will be talking about it in any case. I just wanted to talk about the world of television hosting and how did you become entrepreneur. But I think we can talk a little bit about later because we perhaps should start about bringing your overall notion about bringing the cultures. You are renowned for bringing the cultural gap between China and America, and it's not a small gap, yet it was not a small feat for you to have managed this all. Americans might not even have been as receptive to learn about an Asian country in general, and I know that rather than a political focus, you believe, as I do, that culture, art, and humanity, education, music, dance, these aspects of human life can tell such strong stories that should unite all of us as one world. Um, so
if
that's
I
actually,
have to if I look back in my life, I think almost everything I have done has to deal with connecting people through television shows, through my books, all of that has to do with explaining the cultures of different countries. My television series in China was extraordinary because it was the very first time the Chinese had a chance to see the outside world. Before, they
yes,
never saw the outside world. They were enclosed for so long. So that was an amazing opportunity for me. But before that, I did a program called Looking East.
yes,
Looking East was also a very unique program because it was, in those days, a very first program to explain Asia to the American audience. So,
exactly.
that was already started. Even up to today, I'm still doing things, doing a lot of things that has to do with transferring knowledge about different cultures to each other, communicating through culture.
And
So I think that, my gutsiness, I think is, first of all, I think I learned to be gutsy through my parents. I just talked about their ability or their desire to move to a place that they totally did not understand, right? I mean,
yes,
Hong Kong was an unknown place for them, truly. They had no idea what was coming, what they were getting into. But then, it's interesting. I was thinking about my grandfather. I went to America when I was 16 years old, came to Hawaii actually 16 years old. And my grandfather, I had a grandfather who actually went to San Francisco when he was 16 years old. And I thought to myself, wow, not only my parents, my grandfather was also very, very gutsy. Think
yes,
about those days, right? And think about those days when he didn't know the language. He was only 16 years old. I was very young when I came to America, came to Hawaii when I was 16 years old. But in those days, it was worse. I could speak English when I came to America, right? But my grandfather,
Yes.
how did he do it? The kind of courage he must have was amazing to me,
Amazing.
amazing to me. So I think that I guess that, my parents gave us
Yes.
a lot of how do you say, a lot of inspiration. And I never, there was nothing that I felt was very scary, because if I could have a parent, I have parents who would leave everything they knew to come to a new country, like your parents.
Exactly
You're like,
the same. We
so,
came to United States. We came to United States with $300 in our pockets. Nothing else. And I was the same age as you are,
yeah.
actually.
So, what I'm saying is that, we went through some, we,
Yes.
we, we, we probably say to ourselves, what have I got to lose by trying?
Yes. Absolutely. And through all this activities and willingness to join the cultures, to merge the cultures, to introduce the cultures to one another. What are the key lessons you wanted Americans to know about China at that time, in those days? What
Well,
maybe was in your
basically,
mind?
if you're saying that what was I giving it to them that is different from what I'm giving to the people today, I tell you something. There's never enough information about the different cultures. Never, never. So in those days, I thought I was giving information to a culture, to a people, let's say Americans, something about Asia and China, right? But today, if you think about it, that there's so much misunderstanding. There's so little
Yes.
knowledge about these
Yes.
countries as well. Do you really think that Americans understand China? Yeah. Do you really think that Americans understand Singapore? I don't think any of that, at all. So in a way, I feel as if we didn't do a very good job.
Well,
So in other words, I think that there's still a lot of work to be done so that
I
people,
agree.
what is war? War is caused by fear. Am I right? And fear is what? Is ignorance. When you don't know something very much, there is a lot of fear. So the more we promote culture, the more we promote each other. By the way, Olga, after going through hundreds of countries and hundreds of cities and interviewing probably thousands of
Yes.
people, I must say to you, one thing for sure is that we're human beings. We're very similar, truly. We have the same aspirations and same challenges in life.
Yes.
Yeah, it is so interesting. I mean, a Chinese woman at the age of 70 will have the same challenges as getting older as a Russian woman at
Absolutely.
70, as an American woman, born in America, the same problems. So the more we understand each other, the better it is. And the more we understand each other, also that we know we are all very similar. And that's
Yes.
why my charity is called One World.
Yes.
Yeah, One World, because we are truly one world.
Absolutely. And you've done and you're doing an incredible job because you realize and you're showing to all people around the world that this gift could be a bridge through so many beautiful things, through dance, through culture, through art, through emotions, through smiles. And I think this is so apolitical. And kudos to you for doing this incredible cultural change in initiatives all your life, basically. And now you're currently working on a new series on social media about Hawaii culture, right? Maybe you
Well,
could share a little bit about this project as well, and why did you decide to do
well,
it?
just precisely what I just said. I happen to be spending a lot of time in Hawaii these days. I came here for school when I was 16,
Yes.
yeah. But then I came back during COVID. Usually I came back to Hawaii for about 2 months a year because I like the weather here. It is so fantastic,
Yes.
especially in the winter. If you look around the world, the climate in the winter, there are very few places as good as Hawaii. So right before COVID, we ended up in Hawaii, and during COVID, New York, which is where I lived, New York was literally spiking with the COVID, and
Yes.
China was closed. So here I was, so happily stuck in Hawaii,
Yes.
where well, you can't see it, but I'm looking at the ocean in front of me with the beautiful sailing boats in front of. There's a regatta tonight here, and there is you know, I mean, it's an unbelievable place, and the weather is perfect. So during COVID really changed. You know, I changed my mind about a lot of things. I must tell you, I was a quintessential New Yorker because I lived in New York more than any other place in the world. I still think it's an incredible city, and it's probably in many ways the best city in the world. But Hawaii is where I really enjoy living, and I enjoy the people, I enjoy the culture. So I said, okay, if I am in Hawaii so much, why don't I do a series? And what is interesting about the series, now see, I used to do very long programs about anything. The programs are like an hour, and what is an hour? That television show is about 15 or so segments gathered together of varying length to make into one subject matter, right?
Yes.
That's a 1 hour documentary today. That doesn't really work anymore. Today, it really is social media that would work. If you want to have very big audience and worldwide audience, the best perhaps is really getting to YouTube. And then the content are never too long anymore. So if you look at social media, every 3 seconds or so, or 4 seconds or so, the camera changes.
Yeah.
So it's a very different way of producing those segments now. So for me, it's a challenge and an extremely interesting experiment and learning how to produce for social media and how do you build the social media. I'm still learning, and the One World Foundation gives me a great opportunity to do that. I know that what I am doing is wonderful because, you know, even though I'm in Hawaii a great deal, I am now able to interview people or meet people who are truly experts on this culture, which I have learned so much. And you know, these are people are so interesting. You have to explain. Hawaii is not like any island state. Okay, to me, Hawaii is a very interesting city, state. It's, it's a state that has very interesting food culture.
Yes, absolutely.
A food culture, a costume culture. They have muumuus. They have special aloha wear that is very uniquely here. They have very special customs here that are very different. They have a royal family, which we never had any other where. The only palace in the United States is in Hawaii. It used to be the royal family until the Americans came, right? And there is, of course, amazing music, amazing dance culture. I mean, this is a very rich, rich state. And I really enjoyed it. You know, it's so funny that we're talking about it today. You know, the different cultures are very active in this state, and the Japanese are very active in promoting their Japanese and preserving their Japanese culture. The same thing goes with the Chinese. The Chinese culture is the Chinese are very eager to preserve the culture and actually be very united together. It is fascinating to watch this. Of course, Hawaiian culture is fascinating. You know, one of the most famous dishes in Hawaii is called poke. Poke. You know, it's a fish, right? In the old days, the Hawaiians would go to the ocean, pick a fish, catch a fish, and they just cut it up, put a little salt in it with some seaweed, and they eat it. Right. This is delicious. Hawaii has a lot of naturally very great ingredients. So it's so just that dish alone, you know, is going international. Everywhere you go, you could be in Shanghai and you find poke. I was in Paris. There's a poke bar in Paris in front of my hotel.
Yes, and we have plenty here in Singapore.
It's so. Is it Singapore? Is it in Singapore?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Really? How interesting. So it's all over the place, and if you ever come here, I mean, just poke alone
I love it. I've been to Hawaii a few times, but that time I didn't know what poke is, so definitely next time
Next
we'll
time you
go
come, you let me
together.
know.
Yes,
Next time
absolutely.
you come.
You
Yeah.
know, thank you for sharing about your love, and I can see how much passion you have about talking about Hawaii. And you are known for bringing cultures not only into this public space, your houses, your home in New York, and I'm sure your home in Hawaii right now have elements of East and West, and you have, like in New York, I remember you had an Indonesian half-carved teak door, a painting by your father, a collection of teapots from China. I'm actually exactly the same. My house is very, very eclectic. I love to collect and I love to live through the memories of the places that I've been to and acquired or collected few things. So I totally believe in it. And it's perfect blend of East and West with deeply personal pieces. What does the home mean to you? And how do you
Oh,
feel in the spaces with mixing pot of cultures?
well, my home is really everything place for me.
Yes.
This is where I sleep, right? This is where I work as well. I don't have an office. My office is in my home, and this is where I entertain.
Same.
Every one of my homes has a huge entertaining space. I can easily put 100 people into my homes, and of course that's where I do everything. You know, I watch my television. I do everything. Every My home is my everything. You know, you are totally right. If I go to your home, I'm very, very sure that's I see a real Olga
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you are your home, right? Because
Yes.
everything you put in there represents something
Yes.
you care for, when you like
Absolutely.
very much, correct? So it is a very, very, you know, okay. You've seen some people, they dress so beautifully to go out with their diamonds and everything. And when you go to their home, there's such a mess. You know, there is nothing. So
Yes.
the home is a true representation of yourself,
I totally
and it's
agree.
yeah, it's so telling for
Yes.
me. So telling. When I started a business called House of Yue Sai, I really wanted to tell the Chinese how important it is the home. The home represents you. So I was selling very beautiful things for the home, and you know we even had artwork to sell. The home should have everything, you know, everything that means something to you, right? So let me see now my background.
Awesome.
Let's see. The background of here is a
Yes.
fish, right? Am I
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Can you see a fish? Well, you
Yes.
know, this is this is something that I bought in Prague.
I see.
Uh,
Yes. It's a glass. It's a glass, isn't it?
it's a
Yes.
glass fish. And I thought, wow, this is perfect for Hawaii. So I brought it over here. And so this is blue and green. And I look across on the other side. It's blue and green. It's Hawaii, it's the ocean, right?
Yes.
So it's a perfect thing. And this fish I bought in Prague, right? In Prague, and by a Chinese artist
Oh
called Wang Ping.
my God.
It's so
It's
cool.
incredible.
And
It's
he
very
said,
cool.
yeah, he studied under some of the greatest art glass artists in Prague. So I thought, oh, I wanted. But
Absolutely.
I have I have very kooky things in this house as well. I have a lot of Buddhas. I love Buddha, by the way. I
Yes, I
mean,
have
I have a
one
lot.
there as well behind me. You can
I want
see
to
them
see if you can
on my
see a
shelf.
Buddha. Can you see
Yes,
it?
beautiful,
Yeah.
very peaceful.
And above that is a Tanga.
Tanga.
Is the 45th, 49th cave of Dunhuang. Actually, I have all kinds of weird things in the house actually, and things that I really like. I want to show you something really funny.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
let me show you. Okay, what is this? A pair of
Oh
shoes.
my God, a pair of sneakers, Vans, isn't it?
Now, never
Handmade
mind the
painting.
brand. The brand is not important, but it's this shoe. Do you know an artist called Chihuli?
Yes,
Chihuli is it's
Of course,
practically
huge
America's
studio. I've been to his
studio.
studio, upstate New York.
Yeah.
Yes,
No, his studio in
not upstate
Seattle.
New York.
Seattle. But
Seattle,
you know,
yes.
he is one of
Yeah.
the greatest artists. When I interviewed him, and I saw his shoes is full of paint speckled all over his shoes. I said, "Whoa, these are really cool shoes." He said, "Well, if you send me a pair, I will make it for you." And I sent him a pair, and he speckled it for me. Isn't that
Wow,
cute?
this is
So
amazing.
I have cool things, you know. I have
This
very rare Buddhas or Tangas, but I also have a pair of shoes by Chihuly.
The pressures, and this is, as you say, this is your world. This is your
You're
personality,
right.
and this is
It's,
your
it's,
memories.
it's our
And
world.
I totally relate to it. I know that you have a wall, a memory wall with newspaper clippings and photos from the key events you have attended, uh, and it's vast. It's incredible. The faces that I've seen on this wall and some of the clippings are incredible. If you would like to share perhaps an interesting anecdote about any particular person you've met at these events and featured on your wall, would be great. But not, I don't want to impose. Only if you would like to.
Yeah. You know, I because I interview so many people.
Yes.
And also because I was the ambassador to the film festivals of so many years, and everybody, including Reja Bach, I see that he joined the the the,
The
the interview
yeah,
today.
our yes,
I
special.
see that he said, and Reja knows every year I would give this most amazing parties for the film festival. So it's a very fun. It was a very fun thing, and we managed to invite some of the greatest artists to come to New York to go to where am I? Shanghai. So it was a wonderful 12 years, yeah. And but I don't do that anymore because China has sort of changed.
Yes.
They are sort of beginning to be a lot more enclosed, you
Yeah.
know, not like this anymore. So but during the 12 years that I was involved, we brought 54 very important artists. You know, I'm doing an autobiography. Well, I did one in
Wonderful.
a Chinese version. This is a Chinese version of my autobiography. It's
Okay.
called Be a Pioneer. Okay, you be
And you certainly are.
a
You certainly
pioneer.
are. That brings me actually to the subject of fame. Thank you for sharing all this. You know, fame is, yeah, you have so many amazing people whom you've met and you've become friends, but you too have gained the title of being the most famous woman in China. It is an incredible achievement. How do you feel about this recognition and what does it mean to you personally?
Well, you know, I did not. I didn't call myself the most famous woman in
But
China.
you, nevertheless, you were called, you are called.
At a certain time in history, I definitely was the most famous woman in China.
Yes.
You know, I mean, there are a lot of very famous women in China, of course. You know, historically speaking, you have the women emperors. You know, the last emperor, last empress was a woman, and things like that. And of course, I would say the first lady of China is a very famous woman, right? And
Good.
but since I didn't call myself that, I can always quote that because I'm not, you know, like Time Magazine once called me the Queen of the Middle Kingdom, right? The Queen of the
Yes.
Middle Kingdom. I didn't call myself that. I can tell you that they call me that, right? I mean, journalists always like to use very fancy, it's to catch people to read them, right? So as a matter of fact, for your information, my new this book that I just showed
Yes.
you was a Chinese book. This whole thing is in Chinese, right? But then I decided to write a version in English.
Correct.
That book is called Yue Sai, the most famous woman in China. My publisher insisted on using that name. He said, you know, a lot of people in America may not know who you are. Let's use the a line that is the most how do you say most how do you say most inspirational name
Mm-hmm.
for your book. Let's just use that. So we are using that name. As a matter of fact, but they just this book is on Amazon already.
Okay. Also,
Yeah.
okay, it came
Yeah.
out. Okay, wonderful.
But it didn't come out yet, but it will
It's
come out
in August, isn't it? It's
yeah,
coming out in August.
actually you can pre-order the book,
Pre-order.
but
Okay.
it's already in Amazon. If you Google under Yue Sai book, then that book will come
Wonderful.
out. Yeah, yeah. It's the hardest thing to do is not writing the book, is that she says that your life is full of people, and it's actually to be able to fit in the pictures that I want to put in really was hard because every day I think I'm finished with the book. Every day I say, oh, I forgot this person. Oh, I forgot that person. And you know, as you get older, there are more and more people who mean a lot to you in your life. Some of them you may
Yes.
have forgotten, unfortunately. And then when you remember it, you say, oh my God, I have to scramble to find a picture. And some of them you just cannot find a picture. So that to me, if you ask me what is the hardest part doing with the book, it is that
Cool.
to actually search your brain as to who meant a great deal to you.
Yes.
And if I couldn't find a picture, then there's just nothing I could do, right?
Of course. Uh, and that it's still under the whole umbrella of fame. Fame often comes with both admiration and scrutiny as well. How do you
No.
handle?
I love being famous. I love being famous.
Wonderful.
I think
Oh,
that being famous gives me more pro- positives than
oh, that's
negatives. You know, I mean,
wonderful.
if I called up, if my office calls up and said I need a reservation for a restaurant, you bet you will get it, right? I mean, it sounds silly, but it's very true. And also, if you're famous, people are very kind to you always. And I get more gifts than you can ever imagine. There are people who always would like you to share things. Designers want to share their
Yes.
clothes with you. In other words, um, I don't mind being scrutinized, Olga, because my life is so public.
Yes.
Everything I have
Exactly.
done is so public.
Yes.
And also, honestly, I have been so famous all my life. And if I have done something very bad in my life, it would have already come out.
Yes.
I have always been very careful about my
Yes.
own life, and I've
Excellent.
always been careful about being nice to other people too.
Yes.
So you don't want to be not nice. My mom used to tell us something very important. She said, if you accept a favor from someone, make sure you can do two favors back. So this is something that we have always been
You
taught.
grew up with.
Yeah,
That's your
we
mom.
grew
It's
up with
wonderful.
this. So those are the things that you talk about my parents' influence on me. I think my parents were the biggest influencers of my mother. My mother used to make sure that we understand the value of money. What is money, right? And they let us understand the value of hard work. Money. My mom used to say that don't ever buy a car that
Um,
you know, you know my mom used to say, never buy a new car because the moment the car goes into the ground, it's lost what, 35% of the value, right? So why would you do that? Just get a very nice used car. So I think that's smart. This is just smart. It's just smart
yes.
thinking, smart understanding what money is,
Yeah.
right? It's
And what the real value is. Absolutely.
yes, wisdom. I
Wisdom.
think
Yes.
wisdom, judgment, and wisdom sometimes is more important than anything else.
Yue Sai, thank you. Yue Sai, you mentioned just now social media and in today's digital age, where social media often amplifies fame and public attention. How do you navigate the balance between maintaining privacy? I know that it's amazing. You like to be famous and you engage into the whole notion of it, but how do you have the balance
I,
with
I
your
don't,
own
I don't,
self and your audience?
I don't have a balance. I mean, I'm very public all the time. Um, I mean, maybe in America I can be a little bit more private, but in China there is nothing I can do to stop people from noticing me. I can be wearing a mask, I can be wearing my sunglasses. People say, "Aren't you Yue Sai Kan?" You know,
Yes.
you know, I'm already used to it. I can't remember, you know. I mean, as I said, I have been famous for so long that I can't remember that it's not being famous. But my kind of fame is very different. I am not a rock star fame where people will rush to you and you know try to grab hold of you and tear your dress up, that kind of stuff. No, my kind of fame is just that I'm famous. People don't have you know that urge to just you know just well you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
I'm not a
of
rock
course.
star famous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a pop star. It's through kindness, and you encourage. It's through your activities and through your life. You always encourage kindness. How do you actually encourage your audience to be kind? How do you envision for them to follow just even the concepts of kindness that you convey through your journey?
you know I don't really want people to follow anything I do. I mean, whatever I do, if they like it, Olga, if you ask me what I'm most proud of, is that the fact is that you just said it, being very famous, people scrutinize you in every single way, right? And
Yes,
and I must tell you that I'm most proud of one fact that you don't read anything negative about me in the internet. Nothing. I mean,
yeah,
you can search everywhere in Chinese media or Western media. There's nothing negative ever written about me.
yes,
That really means that I've lived a pretty careful life. Careful life and also pretty honest life as well.
yes,
So for example, if I promise to do something, I will do something.
yeah,
I will never not do something.
yes.
Yes. So that is really where I think it is. I'm proud of that fact
You're
that I have.
very true to yourself. You're very true to yourself. You're very, exactly as you said, you're very honest and you're very sincere and you're just real. And this is what makes your fame to be so valuable. And this is just, thank you for sharing because this is extremely important, especially for someone who perhaps wants to to build their own brand or platform. And today's media landscape or in general, I think hearing that you have to have an authenticity and true values is extremely important. This is what I convey through things that I do in my life. And I don't like fakeness and I'm extremely very, very
You
straightforward
live,
and very
you
real
live a life.
person.
If you can live a life that is an authentic one, is true one, then then in that case, it's hardly anyone can truly criticize you for it. And today, I do so much charity. I do everything I do is involving giving of myself. It seriously, it's
Yes.
difficult for anyone to come and say, "Hey, your giving is not good." My giving is just giving it to other people. So, um, and I don't really then I don't care what they say, right? And sometimes I find myself very critical. Sometimes when I say something about my staff, and I say something to them, and I know that it sounds very harsh, but I said it with love.
Yes.
You know, I would say to my assistant, I said, "That's a terribly ugly dress that you're wearing. It's not because I don't love her. I care a great deal about her, or else
Yes.
I wouldn't say anything,
Yes.
right?" So I think there's a difference between not being kind and being kind. I think in a
Yes.
way, when I did do something like that is actually my a way of showing a kindness, or my way of
I
showing kindness.
I totally agree. Absolutely. You're very honest and you're very sincere. And this is not that often. There's so much fakeness in this world that to have an authenticity and express it, these emotions in a true way of it is extremely noble. And thank you for sharing it. I hope everybody who's listening to us keeps this in mind. I would like to move to yet another hat that you were wearing, the makeup and fashion. We spoke about your childhood, about the influences of your parents, and I know that you studied, your major was in piano actually at the university in Hawaii, but yet you ended up entering a pageant which then took you around the world and formed the first sparks for your venture into career of fashion, beauty, communications, and cultural exchange. You transformed yourself from a TV personality to building China's most leading cosmetic company. Forbes reported you as a changing the pace of the Middle Kingdom, one lipstick at a time. Could you share a little bit with us about this journey and how it was developed, and what does House of Yue Sai now represent?
Well, you talk about three things. First of all, in television, we already know because
Yes.
it influences millions of people. Television is extraordinarily important, particularly in those days. Today, television is not as important anymore, right? I mean, social media is much more of an importance to people around the world. But television in those days, particularly when I was doing television, television was a huge thing. You know, it's influenced so many people. You have, with one show, you can influence millions of people, which is very true. I think that's probably the reason why at one point, you know, the Chinese Xinhua News Agency, which is the most important agency, voted me at 1 year one of the 20 most influential women in the world. So I think because of my television show, basically, because of my television show. So after television, decided that actually this comes with a story. After Tiananmen, you know,
Yeah.
1989, and I went back to China. It's after that's when I got married. I went back to China, and the vice premier in charge of foreign investment hosted a dinner for me and my at that time husband, and he said, you know, we are really having a hard time because all the businesses were leaving China. The China just opened at that time, right? Remember, just a few years ago it opened, and people were coming in, and they were all leaving again,
Yes.
and because they were so scared. And he said, what about if you go into business? Uh, your husband is a businessman. Why don't you go into business? Because it will look so good for us if a famous Chinese Americans would go into business in China
Yes.
at that time. So I said, my ex-husband asked me, well, why, what business would you do if you were going into business in China? I said, cosmetics. Now, well, cosmetics, because, you know, because no one was using cosmetics in China because, you know, the vice premier was so surprised and was cosmetics. We don't even know that word, you know, and in fact, we don't even know the word. No, they didn't know the word fashion.
Yeah.
There was no fashion in China at that time. Guess what? China had no fashion, right? I mean, I was wearing red all the time. So in the country of grays and deep blues,
Yes.
you know, I
You
was a
shine.
real, you know,
Yes.
crazy thought of red. So, so I said I want to do cosmetics because there is none. And because of the fact that there is none, and I know China was opening, women in China will use cosmetics.
Yes.
Because of my television experience, I was absolutely sure that the Chinese will be more open. The Chinese one day will be like everywhere else in the world. And you know what? I was totally
Absolutely.
correct. I was totally
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Today, you cannot tell a Chinese from mainland China who is walking on the street in New York. In the old days, you could say, oh, that woman came from Hong Kong, that woman came from Taiwan, that woman came from mainland China. Today, there is no way you can tell anymore.
Yes.
Because they are chic, they're dressed, they use makeup,
Absolutely.
they look
Yes.
fantastic. I'm talking about certain kinds of Chinese
Yes.
women. Of
Yes.
course, some would never be good.
Yes.
But anyway, so I said, you know, I think I was convinced that I could do a cosmetic business. So there was no cosmetic business in China at that time. So I decided that I will do it. So I spent 2 years really studying the making, you know, how do you make cosmetics? How about formulation? How about colors? I studied a great deal about colors for Asians. So I did a lot of
Research.
work. Yeah, I did a lot of work, and I studied a lot, and also I even had to learn to make people up, because if you're in a counter, your customers come to you and you want to sell her an eyebrow, a
Yes,
pencil or rouge. You need to be able to apply it.
absolutely.
You don't want to have somebody else apply it. You should do it yourself. I should know how to sell every single product
Absolutely,
I want.
because the people were looking at you and they're looking at you, and you have to absolutely convey the messaging that you want to project through your products. Absolutely, of course. And you knowing the culture and the skin tones and everything was all extremely important. And at a later day, you created Yue Sai Wawa, what is an essentially Barbie for Asian representation. What was that about? And
Okay.
especially, I think it's so interesting after the Barbie movie came just now and won so many awards. So, was it difficult at that time for non-Chinese markets to accept Wawa?
Interesting you're asking that, because little dolls in Chinese is yang wawa. Yang wawa literally means a Western doll. There's no Chinese doll. My neighbor in New York asked me to go, next time we go to China, she said, please bring me a Chinese doll for my daughter, her little daughter. So I went back to China. I said to myself, I couldn't believe it. I could not find a single Chinese doll. I could not, honestly, I had all my office look for it, and nobody could find a Chinese doll. I said, what is the standard of beauty then are we imparting to the Chinese girls? Is the standard of beauty like you, Olga, with blonde hair, sometimes blue eyes, right? That's Barbie, what Barbie
No
looks
problem.
like. So I said to myself, I said, this is not good. I said, the standard of beauty should be diversified. We should be beautiful too. Why shouldn't a black-eyed woman with yellow-based skin tone be beautiful? So I created the Yue Sai doll for that reason, and we sold very, very well even in New York, not only in China, in New York too. So
Yes,
anyway, later on, I sold it to the agent that bought me. He didn't do very well with that later. But you talk about the House of Yue Sai.
yes,
The House of Yue Sai was created because, as I said, I wanted Chinese to know more about living correctly,
yes,
living well, really living well. Living well doesn't mean that your whole house is full of Versace or your house is
yes,
full of
absolutely.
Missoni, right? That you teach you how to have better taste for your own living quarters. How do you have taste, actually, style and taste?
Yes.
So, Yusai, the Yusai House of Yusai was really for that purpose. And I created the first book on the first coffee book ever written about interior design too. I have done 10 books. No,
And your
yes,
11th is, as you said, is coming up in
that's
August.
right.
And for everyone, once again, to know that it is available for the pre-order on Amazon. And I am like, I'm pretty sure all of us, all of you, all of our listeners are very excited. I'm really looking forward, and I will pre-order one. And it's a practical guide to living well, right? This is your 11th book, and you widely said exactly that the brands, it's funny that you mentioned it, because I just given an interview and there was a article written about my style, about the style of how throwing the housewarming party and what does the home means to me. And this is exactly what I mentioned, that the house doesn't have to have the designer pieces from all the famous brands and put together to express just the wealth of it. This is not about the home. It's not about the personality. So what you're expressing with our listeners gravitates completely to me. And thank you so much for saying that. And actually, I'm very partial about etiquette and style. I talk a lot about it. I have two books, only two books. One is coffee table book called Save the Date, and another one is Little Black Book, which is a COVID project as well, that called Little Black Book, which emphasizes on style and fashion, etiquette and manners, history and tradition. So I think this is extremely important, and the key principles to contribute to living well are very, very important, and you said convey them so immensely in depth and with so much passion. Thank you so much about this. And you also, I want to quote one mantra that you shared with me as a core, actually, deciding mantra is to always make your choice very carefully. Could you share a little bit what does it mean for you?
Yeah.
What do you mean about
Okay,
making
okay,
choices carefully?
okay, you are what you are by all the choices you have made in your life, correct? From even when you were a child, you made some decisions. And I remember when I was a very young child, I remember I had toothache and I insisted that I have my tooth out. And I remembered just because of that, I mean, because my parents were not there and I had the maid with me. So they took out my tooth. And because of that, I had problems with the upper tooth that was dropping later on in my life. Even something so stupid, some little, I was only probably about 12 years old, I mean, maybe 13 years old. Something that I did then created such a problem until when I got to 40 years old. It was crazy, right? You were sometimes, you have to make, you are your choice. Do you know that? It is so important. Like for example, if somebody joins our conversation today, it's a choice, right?
Yes.
If they happen to learn something from it, then it's fantastic choice. And maybe what we have said today is something that can change the rest of their lives for something better. And that is a good choice. So if let's say that I always say that don't you ever have children unless you really, really want children.
Yes.
In my silly little idea, if husbands are easy to discard, but children are forever. I mean, that people, but seriously, people say, of course, who you marry
Huge
is very
responsibility. Yes.
who you marry is also very important, of course. I'm not trying to minimize it, but children are even more important because once you have your children, that's it. The rest of your life is pretty much colored by that fact that you have those children. You need
Yes.
to live up to your obligations, and husbands. You've heard of husbands leaving you and all of that, but children are so important. Choices, if I had made a decision to go to school in America, I probably would not have been where I'm at. If I hadn't chosen to live in New York City, I probably would not be what I am today, for example. Okay.
Yeah.
If I had chosen to to if I haven't chosen to see my friends in Hong Kong, they would not have introduced me to you. So choice
Exactly.
is choice is extremely, extremely important. And so
Absolutely.
every time you make a choice, you really have to think, is this a good choice? And sometimes it may be silly, even just so silly, something so minor, you think minor, but can be so important.
Yes. Yes.
You
And then
are
the energy kicks in and then it grows one way or another. Absolutely.
You
Hey,
are
you
what
say
you
I
choose. You are what you choose.
yes. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your insights. We will jump into the philanthropy. We did talk about it. It's just because I'm very conscious about time, unfortunately, because I want to talk to you for hours, as you can imagine, but we need to just follow a little bit. I don't want us to be disconnected by the IGTV uh, uh, technology. So I just want to move into few subjects I think that important for everybody to hear from you. And one is of course the philanthropy. You've taken part and been masterminding so many incredible projects through the past years, like building libraries in remote parts of China, connecting Miss Universe with Operation Smile, Yue Sai One World Foundation, as we spoke about it. You have such incredible leadership and vision. Can you share a little bit about the working, I would say, with all these different communities, and what is your own personal mission um, that unites all these different philanthropic activities?
Yeah, I talk about the fact that it seems like all my life I have been trying to
Yes.
connect people through culture. As I'm the chair of China Institute. China Institute happens to be a 98-year-old organization that has been teaching Chinese culture to the rest of the world,
Yes.
especially in America. It's probably the oldest charity organization to doing this work. In 2 years, 100 years old. And I have been really involved with them because I'm the chair of that, right? I spend a lot of time doing it. I spend a lot of, I spend a lot of money also helping that organization. But that organization is worth helping. Today, in an anti-Chinese, very anti-Chinese environment, I think that we need to. I have nothing to do with politics, but
Yes.
I'm so lucky. I was born into an extraordinary culture. The Chinese culture is rich. The world benefiting. It's so useful. So I decided that hey, let's promote Chinese culture in language, in music, in dance, in art, China Institute is building the first Chinese culinary center in America. Think about this, Olga. We've been around for 98 years. We have never promoted Chinese food, and it's part of our fault. Chinese food is never promoted in America. There are 45,000 restaurants in
Yeah.
America, Chinese restaurants. Do you know how many Michelin guide we have? No, this is embarrassing. One. I mean,
One.
what? But you know how extraordinary Chinese food is.
Oh,
But
absolutely. It's so diverse and
so
yes,
diverse.
absolutely.
Yeah. I one
That's
time
what.
interviewed James
Plus,
Beard. I interviewed James Beard one time. I said, Mr. Beard, tell me the three most important, the three best cuisines in the world. And I was expecting him to say something else. He said, Chinese, Chinese, Chinese. I was shocked that the great James Beard would say something like this. So have we done enough to promote our food culture? I must say no, because really is not what we have done. We have done nothing really to promote this. So I wanted to share. Nobody, who doesn't like good food, right? So I'm so happy we're building this, and actually in June we're already opening it.
oh,
And so
amazing.
next time you go to New York and you're going to look for China Institute and you want, there will be events that are involving food.
Fantastic. I will tell my children they're foodies. They're absolutely fond of Chinese culture. They speak Mandarin and they love Chinese food. And my son traveled and in China so many times in depth. So yes, I will definitely tell them. Well,
It's
Mark, you're connected with them
fantastic.
as
Yeah.
well. I will tell, Yue Sai, in many or most of them, I should say, previous episodes of my conversations with Olga series, I noticed this recurring personal mission that many of us have, including you, of course, that culture is a cultural education. Why is cultural education important to you personally? And why are you conveying this? Because a lot of people feel that education is important to learn business and mathematics and economics and geometry, but not that many people really put a lot of emphasis on the cultural education, and you do. So I would like you to share with us your thoughts on it.
I think that culture is so interesting. Isn't that culture interesting? I used to go to Singapore to film. It's so interesting. The Peranakans.
Yes,
The
yes,
mixture of your
yes.
culture, all the religions in Singapore. Think about Singapore without all that. Think about Singapore without these various cultures that are really indigenous of Singapore. Think about if you don't have that food culture that you have in Singapore.
Yeah.
All of these things make the world more interesting. I find it so every day, especially now I'm doing that TV series again, right? Every day I find life so exciting so interesting. If I find it interesting, I do think that our audience will find it interesting as well. I think you are doing a TV show. I think that you would agree with me that if you find something interesting, you'll know that your audience will find it interesting as well. So I think culture is very important. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and to convey, and you're extraordinary to convey this notion to the whole world, basically. And I'm so grateful that you're sharing it with all with us. And there are so many questions I would love to ask about more about your journey, about your values, and about your initiatives. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time, but I would like to maybe explore very, very some fun questions that require from you maybe one or two sentences only. Can I shoot a few of them? Is it okay? Okay, if you would have a dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and
My
why?
mother.
Good
I have to
answer.
tell I always advise my friends who are visiting their sick parents or something like that. And I said, please, please, please spend as much time as you can with your
Yeah.
parents. Because, now that I'm writing my biography, do you know, Olga, how much I didn't know about my young days? I so wish I knew those young days. So you never can spend enough time with your parents.
Yeah.
So please, historical figures, I know we know a lot of historical figures, but please let me meet with my mommy again. So let her tell me a lot of the things that I do not know yet. I still do not know.
Thank you. It's very, very touching, very personal, and very, very extremely meaningful. Thank you. And I feel the same, and I can relate to it. If you could swap lives with someone for a day, who would it be, and what would you do?
If I could swap my life with
This,
someone else,
yes. Is there
well, I don't have
anyone that
somebody I don't have with somebody in mind, but I like to be 6 foot tall, and I would have to have the most beautiful body like this Miss Universe is, and I like to be able to dance and speak 5 languages. I don't know who this person is, but I would like to be that
Okay.
person.
Well, good enough. Yeah. Good enough. And to follow a little bit in this respect, if you could travel in time to any era, past or future, where would you go and what would you want to experience?
Wow, that's so interesting. I really would like to go back to 2010. 2010.
2010.
2010, what I would call a fantastic time in China, because that is the time when everything was opening up. Everything was, there's a tremendous feeling of exuberance, of aspiration, and I've never experienced that since, and I think that would be a fantastic time for us to go back, because there was so much energy, so much openness, that I cannot even, you know, it's extraordinary. It was an extraordinary time in China I'm talking
Thank
about.
you. Thank you. And maybe one or two more. Um, if you could collaborate with anyone, living or deceased, on a project, who would it be and what would you create together?
If I can do with
If you
anybody,
could collaborate with anyone, living or deceased, on a project, who would it be and what would you like to create together?
mm, I don't know. It's that's a hard question, because
Okay.
let me explain to you. I have done so much on my own that it's almost impossible for me to think of doing something with someone
Yes.
else. It's so interesting, right? I mean, isn't that interesting? None of my businesses I've had partners.
You know that just like me.
Yeah,
So I totally understand you
all
actually.
work.
Yes.
So I wouldn't forget about working with someone else. Just
Just
do it yourself.
do it yourself. Exactly. We are doers. And I think our backgrounds are so similar in terms of the journey that, yes, I'm exactly the same like you. I just go out there and just do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's incredible. And if there's any way our audience who's listening and viewing us today, viewing our episode, can support the work you do. Can you please tell everybody who is now joining us and who will be joining later, because I will be reposting the conversation with Olga episode with you all over. So I want people to listen, to hear you, and to see how we can all support you.
Okay. Well, I have a charity. We are still refining the website. It's called Yue Sai One World Foundation. So I hope that in about a week or so of time, you will be able to come on to my charity,
Yes.
my website, and in which you will see the things that we want to do and we are doing, and some of the events we have already held. And I hope that if you feel right about it, give me ideas what I should do, and also give me help. Give me a donation, give me sponsors who can help us to create more wonderful things for this world, to make the world a better world.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about it offline, and perhaps at some point we'll have yet another episode where you can share more about the particular initiatives that are ongoing or upcoming, and we can see how we can make a better world together. Well, Yue Sai, thank you again so much. It was such an amazing, incredible conversation, and I wish I could just sit here and continue talking. And I have so many questions, but perhaps we'll have to, unfortunately, end this right now, unless if there is anything else you would like to share with all of us.
Next time we tour another hour.
Yes, yes. So just everyone, thank you so much for joining us in Asia on the Easter Sunday morning, and all over the world that you will listen to perhaps at a later time when you wake up or when you go before you go to bed. The Conversations with Olga is IGTV YouTube series. They are available on my Events by Olga under the Conversations. I will also be posting it on LinkedIn. I will also be posting it on YouTube. So please follow me. Please follow Yue Sai. Please support her incredible initiatives. And till I see you all again soon. Have a wonderful day and have a good night, my dear. Have a good evening and good night later on. Thank you.